Hello everybody, I am Keaton of Kinetic Catholic Ministries, back with another video for Season 15, Episode 4. I hope that you all are having an absolutely wonderful Tuesday so far. As we're nearing the end of the summer, the school year's coming up, a lot of big changes. I'm getting ready to start at Franciscan University in Ohio, so I am pretty excited about that. Let me know kind of your plans in the college, if you have any big changes coming up this fall, or if things are kind of staying the same for you in terms of your plans. So what I want to talk about today is something that I don't believe is talked about enough in the Catholic Church. And it's something that I think it has a lot of misconceptions, and it gets people kind of scared of the church. It gets people to look at the church in a negative light. And that is exorcisms, right? What is an exorcism? What makes an exorcism? Is this just something the Catholic Church invented? So I want to go through with just a couple misconceptions. When we have horror movies about exorcisms, and when you hear these terrible, tragic stories of things that have happened in exorcisms, you can't blame people for having negative connotations associated with it, right? This idea that it's witchcraft, that it's magic, that it's something superstitious, is one that many people hold. We're going to go through today as to how that is not the case, how exorcism is something implemented by the church simply to help souls, right, those who are Catholic and not Catholic, and what exactly are the steps taken by the church in order to make it safe, right, in order to make getting rid of demonic possession a safe thing and not something that is to be like what we see in the horror movies, and a genuine safety in the Catholic Church. So number one, this isn't something that the Catholic Church just invented randomly a couple hundred years ago because they felt like they needed something dangerous, right, or magic-like. Rather, this goes all the way back to the Church Fathers, right? We see writings about it from Irenaeus, Cyprian. In fact, the same kind of symbols used back then as they are now. Things like the cross of Jesus, holy water, the breathing on the face of the afflicted person, all those things that stay the same. That's not like a changing thing somehow that the Catholic Church just invented that, right? Just like everything in the Catholic Church, it goes back a very long time. And so as we kind of talk about what exorcism is today and kind of the rites that come with it, number one, it's important that we note that the devil and demons, that they are very real, right? We don't like talking about it a lot because it's a scary concept, which is totally fair. Like, it's scary, it is. But what's beautiful about it is that God is always victorious. As soon as we give our life to Christ, that is when the beauty is able to be seen. So demons are absolutely real, and Satan's one goal is to tear us down. There's kind of this misconception that Satan is like the nemesis of God, when in reality God is so much more powerful. Satan has never been and never will be on the same level with God. God is love, God is omniscient and omnipotent, all-powerful and all-knowing. Satan, rather, is the nemesis of us, right? He is trying to bring us down, to tempt us, to lead us away from Christ at all costs. And then demons are very much a part of that, and they very much are real. And possession, as scary a concept as it seems, is real. It's not very common. Full-on possession is not like a common thing that just happens all the time in the church. It is very rare, and the church takes certain steps to make sure that it is legitimate, and we'll be getting into that as well. It's important to talk about exorcism, we're using it as an umbrella term, but there are specific kinds of exorcisms. There's minor and there's major exorcisms. Minor exorcisms are things that we don't typically think about. They are for those entering the church. It may be done by a catechist. It doesn't have to be by a priest. It's a series of prayers. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot straight to the point. There's nothing all that scary about it, right? It's a minor exorcism. Major exorcisms, which is what we'll be focusing on today, are what have kind of the bad connotation of witchcraft and evil and terribleness, right? So that is what is typically thought about when we think about an exorcism. It's important to note that there is a diocesan protocol for everybody investigating somebody who's possessed, and major exorcisms can only be performed by a priest or a bishop. They can't be performed by just a random catechist. And before an exorcism is done, careful investigation is done into mental health. And here's the thing. There's this misconception that the Catholic Church somehow rejects mental health. Mental health is super important within the Catholic Church, like it is. And so there's psychological analysis. Every mental health problem or psychological issue is not just blamed on the devil, right? It's not like, oh, someone is going through mental illness, it's the devil, exorcise it. And I think that that's a bad misconception that gets associated with exorcism. That's not how it is at all. So there is careful investigation on mental problems, and the thing is, we don't want to give credit to the devil where credit isn't due, right? Like if it wasn't a demon, if it's genuinely a mental issue and that person needs a mental hospital or whatever it may be, then that is absolutely something that is done. There's also a misconception that it's only a thing for Catholics. Anybody can receive it. Now, there are certain requirements for like those who are not Catholic. They have to fully believe it. They have to fully want to get rid of this demonic possession. But anybody can receive it, right? You don't have to be Catholic to receive it. You can be in another religion, but your desire to get rid of it, get rid of that possession has to be legitimate. Another important thing to note, and this is a big misconception, is that in terms of how it's performed, it is typically performed in a place that is appropriate for it, like a chapel. It's kind of advised to not do it in the home of the person, like you want to set aside place for God. Secondly, not to be done alone, right? It is not good for the exorcist and the person who it's happening to be done alone. I'm not going to get too much into that on this video. That's not the point of this video, but that's a dangerous thing. Now, sometimes, very, very rarely, it's unavoidable to where maybe the afflicted person, it's terrible. Nobody can be around them. There's too much violence. Maybe he's or she, the afflicted person is harming people physically to where you physically can't have another person around. That changes things. But that is very, very rare. That is the rarest of rare. And so it is absolutely to be done with other people there. And that is something that is important to note. As well, there's the, like I mentioned earlier, that stuff that was used way back then, it's still used now. There's the use of holy water, there's the breathing on the person, there's the cross. We're not going to go through the full order of the exorcism on this video. There is an exact rite, an exact order to be done, and that doesn't change regardless of where you are. There are exact prayers, there's a rite of exorcism that is to be done. Now, within that specific rite, there are certain things that the exorcist can decide to do, but it's all the same. It's always the same. Now, it's good that the exorcist kind of be aware if there's any like cultural differences, or maybe the afflicted person has negative experiences with something like that's important to know. But in terms of the actual rite of the exorcism, that stays the same. And that's the same with everything in the Catholic Church, right? And another thing, another misconception, and again, we're just going through heavy misconceptions to describe an exorcism, is consent. It is important that the person who it is happening to has complete consent, right, to the exorcism. Again, and I want to make it clear, there's nothing like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's no physical weirdness in terms of this. It's just like it can be a little creepy, right? You have the holy water, you have the cross being held up to the person's face, like it's stuff like that can just be a little creepy, and so the person has to give consent. Again, there is the rarest of rare occasions where maybe the possession is super, super extreme, and again, I can't provide a specific example, but maybe the occasion is super, super extreme, and in that case, maybe the person physically isn't speaking, can't, you know what I mean? But again, that's the rarest of rare, and so it is important to keep consent and to keep it confidential. That is important as well. And so the exact exorcist rite, again, that exists, this idea that it's witchcraft, that it's creepy, that it's all this jazz, it's just not true. Possession is a very, very real thing. And if we are too afraid to address it, then how are we going to handle it, right? Again, it's rare. It's not that it happens all the time. Possession is a very real thing. And so it absolutely needs to be addressed. And exorcism is a way for the church to go in and shepherd its flock, right? To save souls, even those who aren't Catholics. If a soul is afflicted, it's something that really happens, right? And if the soul is afflicted, then the Catholic Church needs to help that soul. And all that mental, psychological investigation that's done, that's not to prevent people from getting the care that they need in terms of the exorcism, right? Not at all. Rather, it's done to make sure that this is a problem that needs to be solved. In a spiritual sense, it's a spiritual problem, not a psychological in the brain problem. You know what I mean? And those are two different things. The spiritual is intertwined in everything, don't get me wrong, but that is just important to keep in mind as well. So while, yes, like this major exorcism, that's a rare thing. Number one, I think that there's nothing wrong with doing research on it. I think you need to be careful, because I think that there's a lot of false kind of ideas of what exorcism is, and there's, in the public arena of information, there's so many misconceptions and so many stories of exorcism that maybe aren't true, and maybe like there's just a lot out there. So I don't think there's anything wrong with researching it. I think you need to be careful in that research, and that's important to know as well. And so while full possession is rare, what is not rare is satanic personal attacks, right? Like Satan is always trying to tempt us. Satan is always trying to lead us away from God. In some ways, maybe stronger than others. What the Catholic Church provides is a set of prayers for us to use, right? Prayer is such a powerful tool because ultimately there's nothing, there's no demon, there's no evil force that is over God. And so prayer, Jesus' name, those powerful tools are easy ways to rid demons. And so for the general public of the church, for us in general, there are prayers to use, right? There's ways in which we can ourselves fight our own temptations, fight Satan and the demons trying to lead us away from God. And again, this whole misconception of witchcraft, it's magic, it's superstition, it's weird, it's creepy, it's all this stuff. Again, you can't necessarily blame people for looking at it that way. What it is a better way to look at it is the most intense form of spiritual healing in terms of it is for the most spiritually sick, right? The possessed. And so again, everything within the church is to help souls. Confession is a way to free our soul of sin, to be completely removed of sin off our body. It's like a doctor's checkup, right? And this exorcism, in a way, I guess you could compare it to a more severe surgery. It's more severe, and so it happens less, and it's more extreme, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. If anything, it should be looked at with a more beautiful light because we can see the spiritual healing and the power that Jesus' name has. And so, now that the topic is done, do y'all know what it is time for now? It's time for
the Saint of the Week.
And today's saint of the week is Saint Benedict. Now, Saint Benedict is a 5th to 6th century saint. He's pretty popular. He's pretty well known. He founded the great Benedictine monastery at Monte Cassino. Monte Cassino is it's a place situated on a hilltop between Rome and Naples. I was actually blessed to get to spend the day at Monte Cassino for my 17th birthday, which was pretty great. And if you go there, you can see where Benedict lived, where he studied. He kind of came up with the rules for modern monastic life, or rather monastic life in general, known as the Benedictine rule. And he's really devout in his idea of pray and work. Like that was his main idea. He would spend so much devout time in prayer, to where he eventually founded that. So all that is known, right? There's a lot of great known things about him, about his stories, about his story with the raven. What I want to focus on for this particular saint of the week is the fact, something that's a little less known about him, that he is the patron saint of exorcisms, which is really interesting because we think about the saint to ask to intercede for us in terms of fighting against demons is typically a Saint Michael the Archangel. And Saint Michael the Archangel is a great one, obviously, that's apparent. The Saint Benedict is specifically the patron saint against exorcism, which is really neat. The Saint Benedict medal, which is not what I'm wearing. I pointed this. This is a miraculous medal, but the Saint Benedict medal is known to protect against evil, against vice, against demons, which is really interesting. So there's, in an exorcism, a whole Saint Benedict prayer, which is also interesting. And so when we're talking about kind of exorcisms and when we ourselves feel satanic attack, because again, possession, very rare. A satanic attack in general, in terms of temptation and in terms of being led to evil in that way, in terms of falling into sin deeper and deeper, that's not rare at all, right? That happens with everybody because Satan is doing everything he can to lead all of us away from God as an individual person, but then also as a culture. And so anytime we feel like we're really struggling with that, we can always look to Saint Benedict to pray for us, to intercede for us. So Saint Benedict, pray for us. Before you guys click off this video, I'm not just a YouTuber, I'm also a Catholic speaker. So if you want to book me to come and speak at your church, school, men's group, women's group, youth group, parish, etc., event, whatever it may be, you name it, please reach out to us directly at kineticcatholicministries@gmail.com to work out details, or go to the website kineticcattholic.com or kineticcministries.com. There's a lot of ways to get there. And click on the contact us page, reach out to us, and we can come up with a detail from there. Also, please check out the website in general. There's your very own Kinetic shop up there. We just released new phone cases. There's all sorts of awesome things going on up there, so please do go check that out. Also, please check out the Faith in 5 podcast. I now have a podcast out. It used to be a radio show. It still is a radio show. It's still on the radio, but now we're also making it a podcast. So please do go check that out. That's available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Link to that will be in the description below. And then please check out our social medias, Facebook and Instagram as well. I mean, YouTube, obviously, but aside from YouTube, Facebook and Instagram, the link to those will be in the description down below. Please comment any same topic suggestions that you might have for future videos. Today's topic was viewer suggested, so I absolutely love getting topic suggestions from viewers, saint suggestions from viewers, and I absolutely do use it. Like, it's really, really good to have. So please do as well. Know that I'm praying for you all. If you have any prayer intentions, leave them in the comments down below. I hope that you all have a blessed day, a blessed rest of your week. This was Keaton of Kinetic Catholic Ministries. I will see you all next week, and hi, Brielle.